Good morning, everybody, and a warm welcome for our panel discussion on the true value of live football data here at the World Football Summit in Madrid 2021. Unfortunately, Johannes and me, we cannot be here in Madrid with you, but thank you to the modern technologies in 2021, we can make this a true hybrid event. And me being in Munich, Johannes being in Zurich, you being in Madrid, and maybe all around the world to listen to this great conference on football. My name is Maximilian Schmidt. I'm the global sports lead at Kinexon and one of the co-founders of Kinexon Sports. For those of you who don't know Kinexon yet, we are a global technology leader in the field of the Internet of Things, with specializing on real-time localization technology and real-time analytics platform. My role in the sports area is focusing on to help sports organizations and leagues all around the world to provide them with performance solutions to help them to become a better team, become better players, to fuel the fan experience. As of today, we work with more than 400 different teams all around the world, focusing on team sports, of course, football, but also basketball, handball, hockey, and American football. For example, we work with 1/3 of the German Bundesliga teams and with more than 80% of the NBA organizations. As of this year, we also are a preferred provider for live player tracking, something that we will talk about later together. And with me today is Johannes Holzmüller, who is Director of Football Technology and Innovation at FIFA. He and his team have launched a tremendous amount of new initiatives when it comes to technology and innovation in football. Of course, he can tell that better himself, but I'm happy that we have the chance to speak here together and see what is the present and the future of live football data. Johannes, maybe you want to add some background on you and explain what's the role of your department at FIFA and also like the development of the field that we see over the last 10 years, maybe.
Yeah, good morning, buenos dias. Also from my side, thanks for the introduction, Maximilian. First of all, I would like to thank the World Football Summit team as well as Kinexon for providing this opportunity to talk today about a very important topic, which is becoming more and more important. It's about the true value of live football data. So my name, as Maximilian already said, is Johannes Holzmüller. I'm the Director of Football Technology and Innovation. I'm on the football side at FIFA. So we are looking into how can we improve the football experience on and off the pitch. And of course, one of the major projects in the past was VAR, video assistant refereeing technology, as well as goal line technology. Today, as said, we're talking about a topic which is getting more and more attention. Why? Because live data is what everyone wants and what everyone needs. So before we talk about all the potential, I think it's quite important, first of all, to talk quickly about the definition. So what do we mean with football data, live football data? So this refers to event data, as we all know, like a number of shots or successful passes and so on. But it also refers to tracking data, so positional data, X and Y coordinates of players and the ball. So event data normally is collected manually still in 2021, but tracking data is collected automatically either via an optical tracking system inside the stadium, so cameras are mounted underneath the roof, or via wearable technology like the application, like the devices from Kinexon, which are attached to the player or inside the ball. So before we look, as said, into what can we do with this data and why is it so exciting talking about it, I think it's important to look a little bit back. So what happened over the last few years, but also to give a framework in which we all somehow work. On one side, the competition organizers, on the other side, the clubs, the leagues, as well as the technology providers. So I would like to take you with me and go back 6 years in time, so in 2015. Why? Because at that time, the IFAB, so the Football Association Board, who are responsible for the laws of the game, they decided to allow wearable technology in football. Since that time, players can use these devices in official competitions. And then the next jump is to 2017. 2017, FIFA implemented a global standard for these devices. And when we are talking about electronic performance and tracking systems, as you can see on this slide, then we mean on one side optical tracking, but on the other side also wearable technology. So GPS sensors, but also LPS and local positioning systems. The next jump then is to 2018. So when we had the World Cup in Russia, only a few months before, the IFAB, again, the lawmakers, where FIFA is a member of it, decided that it's now allowed to send live data to the technical area, so to the benches. So, and you can see that in many leagues all over the world now, that the assistant coaches on the bench are somehow connected to their match analysts and to the medical team, who are not always sitting very next to them, but maybe in the stands at the media tribune or even outside the stadium. Then we jump to the Women's World Cup in France 2019. As you all know, it was a fantastic tournament, the next level of women's football. And at that tournament, we realized that 19 out of the 24 teams used wearable technology during their official matches at this tournament. So 19, almost all teams used this new technology. And then we jump to this year, 2021, where we, together with Kinexon, launched the FIFA Preferred Provider initiative for live player tracking, because we see a huge potential. And over the next few minutes, we will talk about this potential. But now I talked a lot about the regulatory and the competition from a competition point of view about the last years. Maximilian, maybe you can add a few points. What happened over the last years from a technology provider point of view?
I'm happy to do that, Johannes. The one thing that we all can agree on, I guess, is that football is becoming faster and faster, and it's becoming more intense. The number of games that professional players have to do over the course of the season or a year are increasing. The demands on the physical and tactical and technical performance of players and teams are significantly higher than they have been 20 or 30 years ago. And that obviously also requires a change in the way how you train, practice. And we as a technology provider want to provide teams and players with the perfect tools in order to actually face those demands and be best prepared in these times. And when we look back at 2014, when we started our journey with Kinexon, so almost the same time that we saw here on Johannes' timeline about the development of how we can bring live player data to the world of football in official games, we saw that a lot of teams and players are already working with data, with video, and trying to help it. But it was not that everyone was working with it. And the educational part about the coaches and the players was not the same as it is today. So the one thing that was sure, like everyone understood there is a need, but everyone was still learning about the applications. And if I have to be honest, when we have been first with the teams, not all the players really cared about that, right? They were somehow indifferent, and it was mostly like a athletic coach thing, how I can learn to use data to manage the practice, the week, the season. So everything was almost in the beginning. And then as it was not allowed to wear any wearables in game, it was also like at the time when we still learned like how can we utilize the potential of value when we have different data in game, different data in practice. So there was a big learning curve. Since then, a lot of things have changed. The majority of football teams have actually implemented something like a framework, like a measurement system, how they want to collect and analyze data. And as it is obvious, because the physical data demands are so high, they also find out that it's very important to have insights about the performance and learnings on how maybe to adopt. This has to be instantaneous, because it doesn't help me if I react and change the training pattern of my team after the training. Sometimes I want to do it during the training. So overall, from the development and education process, as people learn more to work with the data and being allowed to wear it also in game, the increasing demand for us as technology provider started to become, okay, this does not only have to be very accurate and reliable, but it also has to be live. And the processing of those information for the coaches and the players has to be seamless and ideally completely automatic. So that is definitely one of those things that changed over the last 5 years and also brought us to where we are right now, defining and designing a technology tool for teams that is ideally 100% automatic, 100% real time, and providing insights to coaches, players, and all the stakeholders who want to analyze the data, ideally seamlessly, so that they can focus on what they do best, like coaching and playing on the pitch. And this is really like our perspective from the field, and a great example for how I learned this is so important at this current level in 2021. One of our partners that we work with is RB Leipzig, a current participant in the Champions League. They have a young player, a young prospect, Dominik Soboslai. He was injured last year. He had like adductor problems over the last 6 months, and he was on a return to play protocol this preseason to become on the same level to be competitive in the multiple competitions that they're facing. And when he goes on the pitch, every practice, every game, it's really important to have his performance data at hand instantaneously so that the coaching staff around him can react as fast as possible if they see any kind of anomaly, so that they can see, okay, this might be a problem here. He might doesn't run smooth anymore. He might overpace on his way back to competitive edge. And that's is a great example on how a club is utilizing it for the benefit of the player to become healthy again and compete on the pitch where it counts the most for them. And this is only one example from a club perspective. But if I hand it over to Johannes, from a global government body perspective, why is FIFA interested in live football data, and what are applications that do you see?
Yeah, thank you, Maximilian. That was to listen to you from the real use cases already in football. In general, FIFA has the vision to use technology to the best of its potential to improve the football experience on and off the pitch. And now I would like to quickly guide you through a few slides with where we see use cases or what we are at the moment already exploring with live data. So one point that is quite interesting for everyone to understand is when we had the last World Cup in Russia, we had to wait a few hours until we had quality control tracking data available, which we could then provide to the teams for the match analysis. So now this goes down. So that means now we're talking about minutes, and for some use cases, even about seconds that this information is available. And that's the interesting part, because this offers new opportunities. And one part that you can see here on this slide is, of course, it can help to create additional information about the match. In some leagues, in some competitions, you already have seen expected goals metric, or you have seen pressing index, and so on and so forth. It's all based of live tracking data that is coming out nowadays. And if you go to the next slide, it's not only about the analysis, and to be very honest, it could also potentially add another layer of additional information for the medical review. So we at FIFA tournaments have our medical team also involved reviewing situations on the pitch. At the moment, it's all done by a video review. But of course, there's the potential to add an additional information layer also for the medical team of the teams, as well as for the competition organizer. Another big topic for us, as you know, is, and I mentioned it at the beginning, is VAR technology. And here we have been working now since over almost 2 years to look into, can we create a semi-automated offside technology? And this is to help the VARs, to help the referees on the pitch, and especially to reduce the time that is needed for a normal offside situation, that this information is provided to the VAR and then to the referee on the pitch. So here we are also using live tracking data from optical tracking systems, and based on this live data, then the offside lines and the line of the attacker is created in almost real time. And here we're using a new technology. It's called limb tracking technology, where we not only have one data point per player, but many more data points per player, that we know exactly which body part is closest to the goal line. And then if we go to the next slide, another use case, and that's also, we are not the only competition who is testing it. is we are looking also into, together with our commercial department, a new way of storytelling. So that means with all this data available, of course, here we tested, as you can see on this picture, at the Club World Cup in February this year in Qatar, inside fan app, where via the mobile camera you can get additional information if you are a stadium spectator. And of course, there are many more opportunities also for TV viewers at home to get additional information about the game, additional insights about formation and tactics. So just as a very short summary, there's potential, a lot of potential. We are testing a lot, and we are almost 1 year before the World Cup. So for us, still enough time to test and to find out what is the best what are the best use cases. But maybe Maximilian, since you're not only operating your company in the football environment, but also with other sports and other federations, maybe you can tell us a little bit about what other sports are doing in this regard when it comes to the use of live data, especially live tracking data.
I'm happy to do that. And we brought 2 examples. First of all, the European Handball. So it's a couple of years, the European Handball Federation and the German Handball League have implemented live player and ball tracking to analyze the beautiful, powerful, fast game of handball and create new fan experience moments for their audience. So what we do with our partners here is that we create a real-time digital twin of what's happening on the field of handball. So at every given second, you know exactly where are the players, where's the ball, and what are they doing. And why are we doing that? And why is handball so interested to do that? Because as a sport, you're always looking and try to grow with your audience and try to adapt to what is necessary in the current times. And as a younger audience are more and more looking for personalized content and interactive content, the data is giving you the ability to create that more distributed, the more personalized and customized fan and viewer experience. For example, if you know, like on the players, their individual performance, how much they're running, how fast they're running, how many cuts they're doing, how many changes of directions, but also like how many passes and how fast are they throwing on target. You as a fan, you can look at the individual performance of your loved player or your beloved team, and therefore like have your own experience, and you don't have only to watch like the linear broadcasting that you're seeing. So what is the Handball Federation doing at all of the women's and men's European Championships? They are broadcasting a linear feed, but they will enhance and enrich it with data, as you might have seen also in football. But then there's also like an official application where the data goes in real time, so that if you're like sitting in front of your TV or in the arena and you want to have like a dedicated information and insights of the performance of a particular player, your player or your team, you can have a look at it instantaneously and make the experience a bit more interactive. Another thing that they have tried is also like combine it and celebrate those great performances instantaneously with the audience that is watching. So what they have done is they brought, for example, live data from the fastest shot of the tournament on the LED screen. So when that happens instantaneously, everyone already sensed that this was a special moment. It will be highlighted by putting it in real time on the LED screen and celebrate the great performance, for example, of a Nikola Karabatic in the semifinals of a European Championship. So these are some examples of how handball is enhancing the beautiful game. And they are only at the beginning of the journey, because we learn also from, when you look at in the US, that you can use the data to increase things like fantasy gaming, for example, gamification of the content, and also in the future, maybe even more into betting. Another great example next to handball is how basketball is using data. Basketball, especially in the NBA, is it's an intense sport. And if you know the NBA, they play 82 games per season. So you play every third day in the regular season, which is even more as a football player in Europe that has to play in a domestic league and an international league. So the physical demands of playing an NBA season is intense. And one of the core, very controversial discussed topics here is load management. So how can I manage the minutes my players play in a responsible way to keep them healthy for the season, to have them prepared for the postseason when it counts to win a championship, and make sure that they are not getting injured because of overloading there or overpacing the overall sports that they have doing on the court. So that's the really core of what the NBA is looking at. And it's really like, we talked about fan experience in handball, but if you look at the NBA example, it's also about like, how can the data benefit the players and the individuals to stay healthy throughout the career. But also it's obviously very important for the club itself, because if we look at the player, for example, Joel Embiid, he's a great athlete. He's one of the star players from the 76ers in today's game. He earns more than 30 million US dollars per year. They play more than 80 games per season. So actually he earns over $300,000 per game. Or in other words, the value to the organization for every game that he's capable to play is more than 300,000 US dollars. So if a tool and insights that come from data can help to keep him on the court, to bring him into a position to be healthy, to play as many games as possible, that has a tremendous value for the organization, because these are the most valuable assets that they have. And especially when I look at Joel Embiid, we are currently working with 80% of the NBA organizations, but the 76ers were the first ones that we worked with. And back in 2017, he was injured in a badly way, and he couldn't play like in his rookie season. He only could play like limited time in his second season. And providing teams with tools that help them to actually go back to competition, to stay healthy, to have a career, is something that gives us a lot of joy to work hand in hand with the clubs. We would never claim that it's our technology that is responsible solely for the player health, but it's great that we can contribute by giving them a more data-enhanced, evidence-based, objective parameter on the load of the players, and give them a good tool to work together with the players. Today, Joel Embiid is 4 times in a row NBA All-Star. He's considered to be one of the greatest players in the league. And he also managed to go with the Sixers to 4 playoff seasons and runs over the last couple of years. That is a great story. And it's a great example how in the right environment, coaching staffs and players and organizations can use the benefit of technology to help everyone involved. That was a lot from a basketball and handball experience, and we also see a lot of experiences and recent examples of how football is working with that. Johannes, tell us what are current initiatives that you're exploring, and especially when it comes to the way of how live player tracking is relevant in the FIFA ecosystem.
Thank you, Maximilian, and very interesting to listen to all the different use cases you're working on. And of course, we are also in very close contact with most of the big other sports, because we also have regular exchange about how data can be used. It, of course, always different sports, but of course, sometimes it really makes sense to look into what others have done before, or if something together can be done. One of the initiatives that we have started this year, and I said it at the beginning, is the FIFA Preferred Provider initiative for live player tracking. Why? Because we realized when we started the project that having high quality live player tracking, it's quite difficult, especially the ball. I mean, everyone said it should be the easiest to track the ball. But if you're talking to tracking companies, it doesn't matter if it's camera-based or wearable-based cameras. I think one of the elements that every club and especially the coaching and the match analysts are asking is, I need correct ball data, because without the ball data it's quite difficult to do something. So therefore we started with the live player tracking initiative, and we would like to work with the best companies. So it's open for all the companies who would like to go the extra mile, because with these companies together we would like to explore and find out what can be done with this data. How good is the data on one side, but also on the other side, what are the different use cases, and how we can use that to improve the game and to improve the football experience. So my team just came back, as Maximilian's team as well, from Sevilla, where we had another round of tests of the quality of the systems, but also special use cases. And you see here on this slide how the quality tests looks like. You have player in the middle, you have Viking systems around that. So where we can really in detail analyze and assess the quality of these systems. And as said, I really would like to highlight that we are not only talking about wearable devices, also about optical tracking systems, because it depends always on your special needs as a club or a competition. Sometimes it's easier to equip the players with wearables because it's just maybe too expensive to install an optical tracking system in the stadium, and sometimes it's easier to have an optical tracking systems rather than asking the players to wear wearable devices. So therefore, we have that open for all different kind of tracking devices. So we are really keen to explore that, to really working with different tech providers together. And the first one now is Kinexon. And we already did a lot of testing. I can't remember, I think at least 4, 5, 6 different test events we had over the last couple of months together. Unfortunately, of course, COVID was not helping us, so we had to postpone some of them. But of course, this is exactly how we see our collaboration, that we work together and that we can help each other, and at the end to improve the football experience on the pitch, but at the end, as Maximilian also showed, for the fans inside the stadium, but also in front of the TV. Going back, playing the ball back to Maximilian. So maybe you can also somehow give more information about why you joined this initiative, especially the football initiative. We have seen you have done a lot already with other sports. So maybe you can give a little bit more information about why this was of interest for Kinexon to be part of this FIFA development program.
Absolutely. Johannes, we are really proud to be FIFA preferred provider for live player tracking, together with working with you on the future of football. First of all, and as you mentioned, that it's a recognition for our work and our industry leading technology to be like in the consideration, being like evaluated by you, and having like the possibility also like to have an objective proof that we are having like a reliable and valid system for the industry. That is the core and the fundament of everything. But also, like as you mentioned, we see it as our responsibility to continue to innovate, and see it as our responsibility to shape the future of football together. And that's why we want to be part of that initiative, to have to play that active role. We strongly believe that live player tracking has a tremendous role of shaping the future of football. We see a lot of applications for players, for teams, for clubs and federations. And how can we do that in a better way than working together with FIFA and everyone involved, and be like at the pulse of football and the developments that are coming there. So that's why we see it as a privilege to be in that role, but also like a responsibility to work on that. And we are really looking forward to the next couple of months. Hopefully all the testing that we have done will actually then lead to also bringing new innovation to the world of football. That's something that we are working on. And we are really want to be in the front seat of that development and shape that evolution of the beautiful game, while always trying to preserve the core, right? It's all about football, and the technology should always like stand in the back and facilitate to make it a better experience. And a couple of things that we see as future developments are, you mentioned it, like a lot has been done about how can we go to the next step. And I think player tracking has been all around the place over the last couple of weeks. The one thing that we are really working hard on is like bringing in the ball, I think analyzing the wonderful game of football is only as beautiful if we have the ball involved. So the context about what's happening on the pitch, what is really football relevant, is so decisive. So that's something that we are working on over the last couple of years already, and we have a couple of teams that are using it already in practice. And to explain to everyone who is watching why it's so decisive, I think it's kind of obvious, but it's always good to go through an example. I think if we only have player data, we can tell like the distance run by a player. We see that someone can run 12 to even 13 kilometers per 90 minutes of football. We see that people are able to do sprints and high speed running for 20, 30, 40 times over the course of 90 minutes. And we see that there are different demands in those very physical requirements of football when it comes to different positions on the field, on accelerations. We can also measure like internal load metrics like heart rate. But you always have to consider the context of the game that is going on. And some teams play a different way of football. Some like to have possession of the balls. Others are specializing and really making a strong case for themselves by being very good in like just being like the great player that is a great counterattack, for example, like changing from defense to offense in a very fast way. So understanding the playing style, what's going on, helps to have the context. So, and if we know, for example, that a team is having a lot ball possession and are facing a team that is pressing them a lot, that will definitely affect the physical KPIs that we were looking at. Because if you're having the ball, you have to run less. If you're having the ball, you have to pass more, but you might not have as high intensity runs because you are having the ball and you don't have to run without the ball. So always having that context on whether you are someone who has a possession of the ball or if defending, if you're in offense, if you're dribbling, is affecting like those kind of insights that you get out of the data. So while having that kind of information will bring way more context. And it's something that, for example, our partner at Bayern 04 Leverkusen already is working with a couple of years in practice. So they try to replicate the demands of the games, considering if someone is using the ball or playing against the ball, is in a pressing situation or in a build-up situation, and try to replicate practice pieces and drills to actually mimic the demands of a Bundesliga game or a Champions League game is something that they try to achieve through that. And that is an example of how ball tracking can be utilized. One example of how ball tracking can be utilized, how it can help coaching and the communication with the players to get a very good picture about the development of the team, to actually execute the philosophy of the coaching and the club in the best possible way. And that's only possible if you have like the combination of player and ball tracking. That is just one example on things that we're working on. And if that also brings us to the next point, Johannes mentioned it, another really great thing to work on is like, how can we utilize the live data to enhance the fan experience? And an example that we see more and more, why live data is so important, is only if we are capable of doing that in real time and synchronized with the video, synchronized with the viewing experience of your eye, it can actually enable things like augmented reality, right? We all love to be in the stands watching in the arena because that's the rawest and purest experience of watching a game. And if you are then there and take your smartphone and watching your app, you have to take your eyes off the pitch, right? You're going on your smartphone, you open the app and you see the performance data of your favorite player, but at the same time, you're not able to watch the game. So through using the camera of your device, you can continue to watch the game and then connect that camera with data and click on the player that you are interested in and see a dedicated information about how fast he's running, how much he already had done in the game, how big his effort was, how big is his contribution to the game. That makes the viewing experience more seamless. And the challenging part from a technological perspective is like providing that data stream and the insights on really to help the viewer to have a great information piece on his favorite player or the team in real time. Only if the data comes out within milliseconds, you can have that kind of experience. An augmented reality application is one very simple to explain and understand application where the real-time information, the live information is so crucial. And I remember in a talk that we had with Julian Nagelsmann a couple of months ago, we also presented him to the idea of using augmented reality in coaching. So imagine that if we have like smart Googles in the future, where coach is standing on the pitch in practice, or maybe even in game, and watching the game, and he can have specific information about a question that he's having, and the data can provide that kind of insight. He can use that insight and implement that into his coaching instantaneously. That's something that we don't have today. It's not something that we do know when it will come, but it's like an outlook of what will be possible in the future. But also, like, the practitioners will tell us if that is something that they want to use, if they will use, and how fast they will implement that. And the third level, I think, that we experience a lot is like the increasing interest of the players when it comes to that kind of data. They're not only looking into having success and winning the games. Obviously, winning the game is the most important aspect, but they understand how valuable their health is to a long career. So that's why they're getting more and more interested into their individual data. And ultimately, it's their data. So it's our responsibility to understand how we can provide the live performance data for the players in a way that they can consume it and they feel comfortable with. So working on interfaces and applications, how the players can consume their individual performance insight is a great responsibility of our time. And these are 3 examples on things that we are working on and where we see that in the future we have a lot of potential. And the initiative that FIFA launched puts us in a position to work on that, and getting also the feedback from FIFA and the stakeholders to understand if we're on the right track, on the wrong track, what we have to do on, because it's all about a learning experience and in implementing the different perspectives in sports, because we are like only one puzzle piece. The other puzzle pieces are the federations, the leagues, the clubs, and the players. And together we can work this out. And I'm really looking forward to a great future and bring innovation to football. So Johannes, how do you perceive that over the last couple of weeks? Do you think everyone is excited about this, or is everyone like applauding you if you bring up new initiatives, or do you have to fight for that?
Yeah, I think what is quite important is always then also to look at what is the added value. So it's all about the value at the end. So the moment you can show that there is an added value, people opening the door and saying, yeah, that's something we definitely happy to test, happy to explore. If it's just for the sake of the technology, then I'm the first one who is saying, why do we do it? So just that we can create a headline? No, that's not the interest. The interest is really always, at least from our side, always how can we improve the game? And improving the game means how can we make the life of certain stakeholders or certain parts of the game better. So is it that we can support the referees? Is it that we can support the coaches, the team analysts, the medical team, or the fans in the stadium or in front of the TV? So that's always our main purpose. So it always depends, Maximilian. I think it was a very good last question. Depending on what is the added value, and is there really can we really improve the football experience then on and off the pitch? And
Perfect.
I think with this now, Maximilian, I think we are at the end. So
I guess so.
Thanks so much,
Thank you very much
again for the invitation, and also thanks to everyone who listened and who joined us in Madrid, but also online. Was very interesting to talk with Maximilian about these use cases, and this is the future. I mean, live data will come more and more, and let's see where we are in 4 years' time. When we then looking towards the next big, after Qatar and after Australia, to the next big men and women's World Cup, maybe then technology is again at a completely different level. And we are talking then about all the use cases that you mentioned at the end with all the classes and all these kind of things. But let's see where we are then in a few years' time. Thanks everyone, and thanks Maximilian.
Thank you, Johannes, and thank you everyone for listening. Thank you for World Football Summit. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me. We are linked in. We're happy to answer more questions then afterwards. Hope to see you soon. Have a good day and enjoy the conference.